Good evening and salutations, my YNR fans. I gotta sit there and say, this is an interesting show where you have, within these episodes, you have things that happen, and then you have things that are very boring and mundane. I started writing in my notes when I write about some of these characters, stuff that's just mundane. And we'll start off with Chance, Abby, Davon, and Amanda. Damn it, it took me a second. So they're all sitting there in the living room, worried about Dom, um, trying to keep their mind. Well, Abby's sitting there trying to keep her mind off of the baby and how he's doing and stuff like that, and all that sort of like medical stuff. So Amanda starts talking about how she's going to be working at Chancecom, and I think Davon was sitting there talking about how he was going to be working on the podcast, for helping people and stuff. And there's one point where they start talking about how someone, I can't remember exactly the character's name, how someone will be really proud. And they point to the picture, and I imagine it's an actress who passed away maybe a couple years ago. That was on the show. So again, a lot of mundane stuff. Um, there's some talks with Chance and Davon. Um, Davon, I guess, was meant to trying to, let Chance know that, listen, at the end of the day, just because, I'm the one that, gave him the marrow, the bone marrow, it doesn't lessen your position as a father to Dom. And ultimately, even though they try to go to sleep, oh, and also Nate came by to check on the baby, give him some positive news, and then practically told him like, "Yo, y'all gotta get some rest because this is going to be a very long process." And even though everyone went upstairs to go, in their separate rooms, they all came back downstairs to, look at the monitor and just to make sure, like, the baby cries, they can sit there and rush up and make sure that he's okay. So I guess, I mean, in reality, it was kind of a nice scene. Um, Ultimately, nothing really happened with them. I mean, there was one point where they were talking about Chance and being a hero and stuff like that, and they kind of brought up his PTSD. And then when I guess they kind of broke apart or whatever, and they came back together, it's like Abby tried to change the subject so that way it wouldn't be focused on Chance. But to be honest, it's another one of those things where it's like nothing really happened. Um, and that's the thing about this show. You have a lot of characters. They seem like they have a lot of rich history, and there's just times where it just seems like it's a mundane sort of um episodes at times. I mean, with some of these episodes, some of these characters, like a lot of mundane stuff happens. um let's talk about Nate and Victor for a minute, because Nate, pretty much asked Victor for advice as far as his career path. Does he want to work with Ashland at Newman Media, I think that's what it's called, or should you stay in the medical field? And to be honest, here's the thing: even though he asked him for advice, you ever just had someone that sat there and asked you for advice, even though they know, you know, what they need to do, or if they're trying to decide between, one thing and something else, they already know what they want. They just want more of reassurance. Um, and there's a point where, Victor starts talking about, Ashland and his fast miracle recovery. And starts asking him a line of questions, and the same type of line of questions that he was asking him or he was talking about was the same line of questions that Michael Baldwin was asking him. So, Nate was like, why does it seem like y'all both are asking me sort of the same thing? Like, what's going on? Like, he can't sit there and talk about, his privacy as far as medical stuff. And Also, he's his friend. So, but then there's one point where it's like he backtracks and he's like, oh, I didn't sit there and mean anything by it or anything like that. And towards the end of the conversation, I honestly tell you the truth, he didn't even give an answer about what he wanted to do. He was just like, oh, well, thank you for the advice. Truth be told, when he was talking about his job, um, because just he can't do surgery anymore, he's like, it's a lot of bureaucratic stuff and a lot of paper pushing. And he feels like he could probably do more good with Ashland, just on a more global scale. So, bottom line is, he already pretty much decided. It's just taking a while. Like the wheels are just turning slowly until he, eventually goes and works for Victor. Well, technically, he would be working for Victor a little bit, but more for Ashland. But I gotta sit there and say that just seems so awkward. Like you're friends with someone, but yet you're working with them, especially if they're above you. This person's not there ordering you around. He's telling you what to do, more or less. He is your boss, or they're your boss. But at the same time, when 5 o'clock hits, then you're friends. But then you're their boss again. Like I don't understand how I don't understand how that just wouldn't be a factor. You know. Um. What else we got? Now let's talk about Phyllis, Jack, and eventually Tracy, which is Jack's sister. So I guess that makes okay. I guess that makes Billy and Tracy siblings. Like I said, I'm still kind of getting used to the family and the habits and stuff like that. So before Tracy comes in, you know, Phyllis was like, that's not they're talking about um Jack's late wife, father, and turns out he's dead. So he's not the one that's sending these texts. It also turns out, well, at first um, Jack was like, oh, it couldn't have been, his son because, his son just kind of loses his phone and he can never really keep track of it and, they're on good terms. So it can't be, him sending these messages. But long story short, when Tracy comes in, finally, the truth comes out, and Jack is like, I've been estranged from my son for quite a long time. Like he just kind of just walked away and just kind of distanced himself, ever since his mother passed. And I'm gonna be honest, I feel like there's more to the story of that. From what I understand, his son came to town, was even working, I think, for him or working somewhere. And then the minute that she passed, he just kind of just was like, yeah, I'm not messing with y'all. And at first Tracy was like, it could have just been grief at first, but then he just like distanced himself. And, Jack was like, it was really hard. Like he's been lying for so long and he just didn't want to sit there and admit the truth to everyone, as far as being like a really great shame and just more to himself. You start telling the truth to other people. You can lie to yourself to only so long, but when you start saying it out loud and somebody else knows, then it becomes, well, more real. Um, so he leaves for a little bit, and he runs into Victor. Um, apparently, they must have quite the history. Um, because when Jack was like, "Hey, why don't you sit down? I'll buy you a drink," and Victor was like, "What? Did you just say? You know what? Screw it. This seems interesting." So they sit down, and they have this interesting philosophical talk about regrets and the past coming back to haunt you, and it's like Jack doesn't sit in and give too much information as far as like what's really troubling him, because Victor can already tell, not just by the fact that he's drinking with him, but like just his mood, his demeanor. He's always been transparent according to Victor, but he started talking about children and regrets and um, you know, Victor said more or less, I might have made some mistakes, but they're old enough now, and hopefully they can sit there and kind of see, um, they can kind of sit there and see where I was coming from, more or less. But long story short, it seemed like the talk with Victor helped oddly, because like I said, they really seem like they're. I wouldn't say they're same mortal enemies. I mean, he said that they clash in the business world, but he gave him the clarity he needed. So he goes back to Phyllis, and he's like, I was about to call her Philip. He goes back to Phyllis, and he's like, yeah, I need to sit there and find out what's going on. Now, the whole time, you know, Victor's not there talking with Jack, Phyllis is talking to Tracy and, just talks about how much of a good person he is and, who's ever doing this, Phyllis is like, I'm going to sit there and find out. And, going forward, their life is going to be a living hell. She keeps Snitty talking about how she has contacts and she has ways. Snitty trying to, ways of getting information. And maybe I need to sit there and read her bio because for a person who owns a hotel, the fact that she's like, oh, I can get information. I can find out who this person is. Like within minutes, pretty much. That's not what she said, but the fact that she's so confident as far as finding out whoever this person is, I mean, who is this Phyllis woman, I mean, how much, well, clearly I must be missing a lot. But yeah, Jack is like, I need to sit there and find out who is contacting me. Which it should be interesting. It should be interesting. I'm wondering, because here's the thing. A while ago, I heard it was a crossover with B&B and YNR and stuff like that. And I always find those crossovers really interesting when you watch the shows and you know the characters and seeing how they interact with other characters from even though it's the same universe, it's not exactly the same show. So it's always interesting to sit there and see them, um, how they interact and how they bounce off each other personality wise. Um, and the reason why I sit there and say it is because they're trying to find out what's going on in LA. Now, I don't know if they're actually going to go to LA. I hope they do, because if they do, sit there and see if they go to LA, hopefully it has a crossover with B&B, because I just started watching the show and I'm kind of getting used to the characters, so it will be kind of interesting. Um, Especially since the last time I checked, somebody was sitting there saying, I could be wrong, that Wyatt from B&B left and he might be on. Well, not that he's on um YNR, but like maybe his character is. I don't know. Let me see if there's anything I'm missing. Like Wyatt moved to Genoa City, but I can clearly totally be wrong about that. So I was sit there and say take my information with a grain of salt. But the people who watch my reviews clearly know this show more than I do, which is a blessing. I think that's about it. I am interested to sit there and find out what's going on with Jack and who is Cynthia texting this person, who is Cynthia texting him. Because I'm gonna be honest, I feel like there's a lot more to the story than just simply his mother passing and then you know his son just being texting him pretty much and they're saying like I don't want to have a relationship with you, I want to parse you. Like it just seems more to the story than that. And if I had to sit there and take a wild guess, I'd sit there and say maybe he got kidnapped. I mean, I know grief um is just a hell of a thing. And it's possible that he could have just been like, you know what, listen, I'm quite my feelings, I want to parse you, whatever. And that could be the case, but I feel like there's more because I feel like there's more to him just his mother dies and then he's just like they were getting along, everything was great, he was getting accustomed, like as far as like, getting to know other people and stuff like that, and his mom dies and he's like, I want no parts of none of y'all. Like I feel like there's more to the story. Just double check my notes real quick. Yeah, I think that's about it. So, with that being said, I'm gonna go. I want to thank everyone for watching. Be safe. I'm really appreciating um all the info that everyone's that they're giving me as far as catching me up on these people's history and past and stuff like that because it has been so much help. Um, Even just not feeling like I'm in the dark so much about certain characters, it definitely does help. So I want to thank everyone for doing that. And with that being said, I'm gonna go. I want to thank everyone for watching. Be safe. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.